My name is Merle Whitlock. I'm 70 years old. For 33 years I've worked the docks at Cape Larkin Marina. Most people think that's all I do. I coil the lines. I fix the cleats. I know every slip number by heart and which boats are late on their fees. That's what they see. That's all they've ever asked to see. They don't know I founded this marina co-op. They don't know I hold the deed through a trust, quiet as a held breath for 33 years. They don't know why I built it, or what it cost me. My son Denny doesn't know either. Denny runs the marina now. He's the manager. He wears a polo with the co-op logo and carries a clipboard like it means something. 3 weeks ago, my phone rang while I was hosing down the bait shop floor. It was Sal Reyes, our harbor master. He's worked this dock for 26 years. His voice had an edge to it I hadn't heard in a long time. "Merle," he said, "you need to see what's coming up at the anniversary dinner Thursday." I asked him what he meant. "Denny's been talking to Tidewater Resorts," he said. "They want the whole marina. Every slip. Every acre of shoreline." I set the hose down. Water kept running onto the concrete. Forgotten. "Sell it for what?" I asked. $47 million, Sal said. "They'll put up a resort with a private beach club." "Merle, Denny thinks the co-op board owns this outright. He has no idea about your trust." I didn't say anything for a moment. A gull cried somewhere out past the breakwater. "Does the board know?" I asked. "No," Sal said. "Nobody knows but you. And now me." I thanked him. I told him not to tell Denny I was coming. I hadn't sat through a co-op board meeting in 8 years. I liked staying invisible. It let me watch this place run without anyone asking me hard questions. And Denny, I think, liked me being invisible too. It let him run the show without a father looking over his shoulder. But nobody keeps a marina alive for free. Somebody pays first. I paid first. I grew up on these docks. My older brother Walt taught me to tie my first bowline knot when I was 6 years old. We fished together for 20 years, side by side, on a boat our own father left us. Walt was the reckless one. I was the careful one. Together we made a decent crew. One October, a storm came up faster than the forecast promised. Walt was out past the point alone, running gear back before the weather turned. I called the old marina office for help. Back then, there was no real co-op, just a private dock owner who charged whatever he wanted and kept the rescue boat locked up unless you paid extra for the service plan. Walt hadn't paid for the service plan. Nobody came for 2 hours. By the time a boat finally went out, it was too late. I remember standing at the old dock office, begging the owner, a man named Corning, to send someone out sooner. He told me insurance wouldn't cover an unpaid customer. He said it flat, like he was reading me a receipt. I offered him every dollar in my wallet, which wasn't much, and he still made me wait for a phone call to his insurer before he'd dispatch the boat. 2 hours. I've done the math 1,000 times since. Walt's boat wasn't that far out. A fast boat could have reached him in 20 minutes. I think about those missing 100 minutes more than I think about almost anything else in my life. I buried my brother that November. I spent the next year furious at a system that let a man drown because he was $30 short on a plan he didn't know he needed. I used every dollar I had. I bought out that private dock owner. I turned it into a member-owned co-op, funded through a trust in Walt's name, so no fisherman on this water would ever again be too poor to be rescued. Denny was 4 years old that year. He grew up believing his father was just a dockhand who loved boats more than money. He never asked why the co-op always had funds for a new rescue vessel when other marinas up the coast were falling apart. He never asked who actually owned the ground under the docks he walked every day. I decided it was time he found out. The night before the anniversary dinner, I walked the docks alone after the last boat came in. Sal let me stay past closing. I stood at the end of the breakwater, where Walt's boat used to tie up, and I thought about the 2 hours we lost waiting for help that never came in time. Sal found me there around dusk. "You don't have to do this tomorrow," he said. "There are quieter ways to stop a sail." "Maybe," I said. "But Denny's spent his whole career assuming quiet means empty. I think it's time he learned different." He didn't argue. He just clapped me on the shoulder and walked back toward the office. The anniversary dinner was Thursday night. Tidewater Resorts had rented the Marina's own event hall and dressed it up like something out of a glossy brochure. String lights over the water, a raw bar, a big screen looping renderings of a private beach club where our bait shop used to be, an infinity pool where the boat ramp used to be, cabanas where the rescue boat slip used to be. I put on my one good shirt. I walked in through the side gate in my work boots, because that's who I've always been at these things, the Dockhand, standing near the drink table, saying nothing. Denny was up front near the podium, laughing with 2 men in resort polos crisper than his own. He spotted me near the drink table and didn't lower his voice at all. "Dad," he said to a man beside him, loud enough for half the tent to hear, "this is my father. He's just the Dockhand here. Doesn't really weigh in on the business side." The man chuckled politely and turned back to Denny without so much as a nod at me. I felt that one land. 33 years of keeping this co-op alive, and I was just the Dockhand who didn't weigh in on the business side. I didn't say a word. I found a folding chair near the back, close enough to the water to hear it lapping under the deck boards. I sat down. I waited. A young Dockhand named Rosa found me there a few minutes later, carrying a tray of drinks she wasn't supposed to be serving. "You okay, Merle?" she asked. "You've got a look on your face." "I'm fine," I said. "Just listening." She nodded and moved on, the way young people do when they sense something in an old man they can't quite name. I looked around the tent, co-op members I'd known for decades. A city councilwoman posing for photos near the raw bar. My son's whole future laid out on that screen, built on a lie he didn't know he was telling. I found out later, from Sal, why Denny pushed this deal so hard. The co-op's slip fees had barely covered maintenance the last 2 years. Denny felt the pressure of that every month, watching the books, worrying he'd be the manager who finally let Cape Larkin go under. A $47 million offer must have looked like salvation instead of betrayal, from where he was standing. I didn't know any of that yet, sitting in my folding chair. All I knew was the word Dockhand, said with a laugh, loud enough for strangers to hear. The Tidewater rep took the podium first. Sharp suit, sharper slides. He talked about unlocking waterfront value and elevating the guest experience. He said the $47 million would fund a new working marina 2 towns over, tucked behind an industrial park. Response times for water rescue be damned. Then Denny got up. He talked about growth. He talked about honoring the co-op's roots while embracing smart development. He said the vote tonight was mostly a formality, since the co-op, in his words, holds clear title to every inch of this shoreline. That was the moment. I stood up from my folding chair. My knees cracked loud enough that a woman 2 rows up turned around. "Denny," I said, "can I ask a question?" He smiled the way you smile at your dad when he's about to embarrass you in public. "Sure, Dad. Go ahead." "Who exactly owns this land?" I said. "Clear title, you said." "The co-op," he said, "has since before I was manager." I nodded slowly. I reached into my shirt pocket. I pulled out a folded copy of the deed, 33 years old, soft at the creases from being checked once a year, every year, just to make sure it was still real. "This land," I said, "is owned by the Walter Whitlock Rescue Trust. Established 33 years ago, I'm the sole trustee." The tent went quiet the way water goes still right before a swell. "That's not possible," Denny said. His smile hadn't caught up with his eyes yet. "It's very possible," I said. "I bought this marina the year your Uncle Walt drowned 200 yards off that breakwater. I paid for the first rescue boat. I paid for every radio upgrade since. Every dollar this co-op has ever spent on safety went through a trust with my name on it, not the co-op's. Sal, standing near the bar, pressed his hand to his mouth. "You can't sell what you don't own, son," I said, as gently as I could manage in front of that whole tent. "And I don't own a beach club. I own a rescue station that happens to dock boats." The Tidewater rep started talking fast, something about pre-existing agreements and shoreline easements. I let him talk. Paperwork doesn't care how good your renderings look, and his renderings never once mentioned my trust, because his team never checked. Denny found his voice again. "Dad, this deal is real money. This funds a modern facility. This is the future." "The future," I said, "is a boat reaching a drowning man in 20 minutes, not 2 hours, because somebody was $30 short on a service plan. That's the future I built. Not a cabana where the rescue slip used to be." Somebody near the front started clapping. It was Rosa, tray still balanced in one hand. Others joined her. The applause rolled across the water like something the breakwater itself had been holding onto. Denny's face went through several colors. Embarrassment first, then anger, then something that looked almost like grief. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" he said, quieter now, meant just for me, though the microphone up front was still hot and half the tent heard him anyway. "Because you never asked," I said. "You asked about slip fees. You asked about maintenance budgets. You asked about growth projections. You never once asked who actually owned the ground under your uncle's memory. I let you build a career thinking this place ran on nothing but hard work. That's on me too. I'll be honest with you. I wasn't only trying to save the Marina that night. Part of me wanted Denny to feel, just once, as small as he'd made me feel at that drink table. I'm not proud of that part. But I'm telling you the truth. A co-op board member named Councilwoman Petrakis stood up before any vote could happen. She looked straight at Denny. "Mr. Whitlock," she said, using his full name the way people do when they mean business, "did you draft this sale without confirming who holds title first?" Denny's jaw tightened. "I was told the co-op held clear ownership." "Told by whom?" He hesitated. The pause said more than any answer could have. "Nobody told me directly," he finally admitted. "I assumed it. I've managed this marina 6 years. I never had a reason to think otherwise." An older member named Kowalski leaned toward Denny. "Son, I think we pull this whole thing off tonight's agenda, and we do it now." The Tidewater rep tried one last angle. "Perhaps the trust and the co-op could partner," he said smoothly. "A joint venture. Everyone benefits." "There's no joint venture with a rescue trust," I told him. "You either fund water rescue or you build a beach club. Those aren't the same business, no matter how you dress up the slides." Petrakis nodded firmly. "The gentleman makes a fair point." The co-op tabled the sale that night. My deed mattered, but Sal is the one who truly turned the room. He stood up after me and read 26 years of rescue response data, minutes saved, lives pulled from the water in time because a fast boat was always on call. Numbers no beach club could ever replace. The room didn't need me to be a hero. It needed the truth laid out plainly, and once it was there, the vote fell apart on its own. Tidewater Resorts withdrew their offer within the week. Word travels fast when a $47 million deal collapses over a trust deed nobody bothered to search for. The local paper ran the story 2 days later. Sal texted me the article with 3 exclamation points. Rosa printed it out and taped it to the bait shop corkboard right next to the tide chart. A regional news station picked up the story a week after that, calling it the Dockhand who owned the marina. A reporter asked for an interview. I turned her down. Some things aren't meant to be performed for a camera. This story, the one I'm telling you now, is the only full version I've ever told, and I'm only telling it because I think somebody out there needs to hear it more than I need my privacy. Strangers started stopping me at the fuel dock. An old fisherman I barely knew shook my hand and said, "You saved my nephew's life on that rescue boat 11 years back. I didn't know it was your money that put it there." I didn't know what to say to that. I still don't, most days. I didn't do it for the thanks. I did it for Walt. Those 4 days of silence from Denny were harder than I expected. I'd imagined relief once the truth was out. Instead, I got quiet, and quiet from your only son feels heavier than any argument. Sal called on the second day. "You did the right thing," he said. "Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt to wait." "I know," I said. "Want me to talk to him?" "No," I said. "This one's mine to fix. Or not fix. Whichever way it goes." On the third day, Rosa left a note on my truck windshield. Just 3 words, "He'll come around." I taped it to my fridge. I still haven't taken it down. Denny didn't call me for 4 days. On the 5th day, he showed up at my house. Not in his polo. In an old flannel shirt I hadn't seen in years, the one he used to wear helping me on the boat as a teenager. He sat on my porch step. "I need you to explain it to me," he said. "All of it. Not the version from the dinner." So, I told him. I told him about Walt. About the 2 hours we lost. About the fury that never fully left me. I told him about the day I walked into Corning's office with every dollar I had, 29 years old, hands shaking, and told him I wanted to buy the Marina outright. Corning laughed at me at first. Then he saw I was serious. Then he saw the number I was offering, higher than the place was probably worth, and he stopped laughing fast. I didn't haggle. I just wanted it done before I lost my nerve, or my grief turned into something colder than it already was. I told Denny I never talked about any of it because talking about it meant admitting how furious I still was, at a world that let a man drown over $30. I told him I never talked about it because talking about it meant admitting how angry I still was. Anger like that doesn't heal on its own. It just goes quiet. Mine went quiet for 33 years. He cried on that porch step. I hadn't seen my son cry since he was a boy. "I called you the Dockhand," he said, in front of everyone. "You did," I said. "I'm sorry, Dad, I know." We sat there a long while. Eventually he asked the question I'd been waiting 33 years for somebody to ask. "Why did you never make me a trustee?" "Because I wasn't sure you wanted the Marina," I said. "I thought you wanted the title. The polo shirt. The clipboard. I didn't know if you wanted the actual weight of it." "I want the weight of it," he said. "I want to know what it's for." We sat quiet a while after that. The streetlight down the block flickered on early, the way it does on cloudy evenings. "Can I ask you something else?" Denny said. "Go ahead." "Did you ever think about just telling me? No dinner, no board meeting. Just sitting me down and saying, 'Son, here's what happened to your uncle, and here's what I built because of it?'" I thought about that honestly before answering. 100 times, I said. "I'd get close at Thanksgiving. Or the day you got your captain's license. Something always stopped me." "What stopped you?" "Fear, mostly," I said. "If I told you the Marina was mine, I was afraid you'd stop seeing your work here as something you'd earned yourself. I wanted you proud of your own career, not my money." I got that wrong. Secrets don't protect anybody. They just wait for the worst moment to come out on their own. Denny nodded slowly, looking down at his hands, the same hands I taught to tie a bowline knot on this very step 25 years ago. "I'm not going to pretend Thursday didn't hurt," he said. "Finding out like that, in front of the whole co-op. That's going to sit with me a while." "It should," I said. "I'm not sorry I did it the way I did it. I am sorry it had to be done that way, at all." 3 months later, I added Denny as co-trustee. He doesn't get final say over the land that's mine until I'm gone, but he sits with me now when the real decisions get made. He's seen the deed. He's seen his uncle's name on the founding papers. He understands, finally, that Cape Larkin was never a line item. It was a promise I made to a brother I couldn't save in time. The resort deal is dead. Tidewater found another stretch of coast to develop somewhere else, I imagine. Our Marina still stands where it's always stood, Docks full, rescue boat fueled and ready at the end of the breakwater. Sal still runs the harbor office. He still calls me Merle, not the Dockhand, which I appreciate more than he probably knows. Rosa made harbor assistant last month. Denny pinned her badge on himself, in the same tent where I'd stood invisible at the drink table, watching my son almost sell away everything Walt's death had built. This time, I wasn't invisible. Denny called me up to stand beside him for the photo. "This is my father," he said to the room. "He founded this marina. Everything we have because of him." Kowalski came up to me afterward, shaking his head. 33 years hiding a story like that," he said. "I've known you 8 years, Merle, and I had no idea. That was the point," I told him. "Nobody was supposed to know." "Well," he said, "I'm glad we finally do. I still take the rescue boat out myself sometimes, on quiet mornings, just to check the engine and clear my head." Denny asked to come along last week. We didn't talk much out on the water. We didn't need to. We just watched the horizon the way Walt used to teach me, scanning for weather before it turned. "You think he'd be proud of this place?" Denny asked me, out past the breakwater. "I think he'd be proud you finally asked," I said. "Some men build monuments with their names carved into stone. I built a marina, and I let my own son believe it belonged to no one in particular for 33 years. Because grief is a hard thing to explain out loud, and silence was easier than the truth. If there's one thing I'd tell you, watching wherever you're watching this, it's this. The quietest man on the dock is sometimes the one holding the deed. Don't assume the guy tying off the boats has nothing to say. He might own the whole marina. He might have built it out of a loss he never fully stopped grieving. If you believe respect is earned in silence and paid back in full when it's least expected, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to The Forgotten Father if you want more stories like mine. Real stories about fathers and grandfathers who let their actions speak long after the world stopped listening. And tell me in the comments, would you have stood up at that dinner the way I did, or would you have let the silence hold a little longer? I'll read every answer. This is Merle Whitlock, and this is my true story.